Is it?
Yep.
Hello, Patriots. This is Kerry.
And this is Joel.
And we are the Quiet Boys
of Truth.
All right. As promised, we have some special guests today. Do you want to tell them about our special guest, Joel?
Yes, today we have with us Mr. and Mrs. Beer at the Parade.
Otherwise known as Scott and Patty.
Yes, a couple of really good friends we've made.
Yeah, we actually met them only a couple weeks ago. And after talking to them for only a few minutes, it really felt like we had known them our whole lives.
Total besties.
Yeah, so I think today we're just going to talk a little bit about the Great Awakening and how it has affected couples and
we'll just let it flow, see what happens from there.
One of you is awake and one of you isn't. And yeah, so welcome, guys.
Yeah.
Hello there, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Howdy, howdy. Would you like to start?
I like your hat, Patty.
Thank you. And shout out to our new Q friends, Kathy and Jeff. They bought us this, the future.
Hi, guys.
The necklace. So shout out to Jeff and Kathy.
Awesome. Very cool.
Very generous friends. Very generous.
Mm-hmm.
So today's the first Q couples conversation.
Yeah, this should be really interesting because we've had our own experiences and trying to keep the yoke even. And, you know, I mean.
So did you guys want to tell us who woke up first?
She got woke to more world issues way before I did, things like 9/11 and things like that. And we ran into an issue. It wasn't that I didn't think something was a little fishy about 9/11, and I always knew the politicians were just corrupt as can be. The problem I ran into was how her and her friends would talk about these things. And I mean, if you want to write a book called How to Red Pill Like You're Horrible at It, right? These people, they were as subtle as a guardrail. They did everything backwards. When I wrote the Socratic method of red pilling, I just did everything they did and did the opposite. So I would listen to her be in these phone conversations with her friend. And then I'd get off the phone and she'd get off the phone and I'd say, you know, I walked by your office and I heard you say, you know, that President Bush eats babies. And I go, she goes, well, no, not Junior, but his dad eats babies. I'm like, so where do you get your intel? Is there somebody, you know, some White House insider that says, oh yeah, every night around midnight, he calls down for room service and says, you know, give me a 12-pound 4-ouncer with a side of coleslaw, you know? And so I would just listen to them talk about this stuff and I would just shake my head like, talk about tinfoil hat wearing nincompoop. So it actually pushed me away from being curious. And so I'm sure it was frustrating for her that her and her friends were all on the same page and I was the lone outsider. I just refused to believe that, you know, our country's leaders eat children and
nobody wants to believe that, right? Nobody wants to believe that.
Very, very difficult. And what I was going to start with is, and again, here's another shout out, but my friend Chris, she and I, just after 9/11, it wasn't long afterwards, she and I began to kind of search together and find out all these things that we never knew existed. And I know that a lot of people are going to relate with this, but I had this kind of analogy run through my head the other day, and it was almost like she and I just jumped on the truth train and it just started rolling down the tracks, and we were really, really excited about that.
Already take it off. We can't stop.
But
then all of a sudden, the train stopped suddenly in the middle of a desert. She and I are looking at each other. We get out of the train car. We're looking around. There's nobody else with us. We're all by ourselves. And we felt that way for years. And I know that other people relate to that because we talk to them all the time.
Yep.
All the time.
So Patty's friend Chris, this is the one you're talking about, Scott, that you
hear
her talking
to. Shout out to my beautiful and lovely friend Chris.
Her best friend's Chris. My best friend's name is Chris.
It's Chris, yeah.
They look nothing alike.
So and Chris is going to watch us and her friends. So hi, Chris. So, but it was a lonely, lonely road. And I've always said it was a blessing and a curse, because it was a blessing because we were finding out the truth about all this stuff. But it was a curse because we were alone. We couldn't talk to anybody else about it. Thank God she and I had each other.
Well, you could, but I heard the way you talked about it and talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm. They were like two people that just joined Amway and they were snorting coke and wanted to talk about it.
But you guys said that in his interview. You guys shared the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot more folks feel like this. I know they do.
We talked about that, how at first we just wanted to go out and just tell everybody everything.
Tell the world. Yeah.
You know, and the world was not ready for that.
Yeah.
And so we had to take a major step back and realize that we have to go about this a whole
different way, because you start realizing that these truths that have been suppressed so well that there's literally been a false reality created for the entire public, you know? And so
we were sold, in fact, we were ingrained with the exact opposite of everything. You know, trust your leaders and all of those sorts of things.
Right.
And the indoctrination was everywhere. And this is what's hard for people to wake up to, is that it's been this way our entire lifetime.
Yes.
Around what year was Operation Mockingbird when the CIA took over our media? Do you have any idea when that was? That like late 40s or something?
Yeah, I was going to say early 50s, around late 40s, early 50s.
It's been a while. I mean, that's like, you know, my parents, grandparents exposed to it even, you know?
Right.
And weren't they, Scott, the ones that penned conspiracy theorist? So people like us woke up, they labeled.
CIA coined that term.
They weaponized it.
To make us appear crazy.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know what's really funny that we're talking today is that, like, right now as we're speaking, Zuckerberg, Google, Facebook, and all those guys, they are trying to hang on to every last thread they can, because the truth is going to come out. And they're desperate.
And didn't Mr. Jack Dorsey not show up?
Didn't
to
show
that
up
hearing today?
We were like, you little weasel. You little weasel.
Huh. Well, what I'm not saying about him could fill libraries. So, in terms of red pilling, here we are. We're almost into August of 2020.
Yeah.
And we are all pretty much of the agreement that something has to start coming out between now and the election. Because Trump has been playing defense now for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's sitting on mountains of evidence of not only his innocence, but the good things that he's done and the bad things that were done against him.
Yeah.
So if and I'm saying this to somebody, if you're in any type of relationship with any other people who aren't red pilled, now is not the time to push the issue, because as the evidence starts coming out, they're going to naturally get more and more curious, and you don't have to say a whole lot. Yeah. And even worse, in the books that I've written, and I've studied influence and persuasion, the last person that you're going to red pill is the people closest to you, because you fall into old roles and old habits and old arguments. Yeah. And so, what I discovered, like with my parents, I brought up Building 7 one time, and oh man, it caused a serious rift in our family. So I just let it sit for like a year and a half, and out of the blue one day, my mom calls me and she goes, well, I don't want to talk about this anymore, but she goes, almost all of our friends agree with you. And I said, well, that's fine. So they were willing to hear it from their friends, but not from their children.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and sometimes you do have to hear something repeatedly from multiple sources before it starts to really sink in. Those closest to you, sometimes they can be telling you, but falling into old roles, that's a big part of it. I mean, because they go, well, nah, we know you, we know who you are.
So the best advice I could give anybody listening to this who's really excited about Q and the Great Awakening, and that you got to curb your enthusiasm and don't bring it up unless you're asked, because the people around you are going to slowly start waking up and they're going to be curious. So I would use this time to work on yourselves, work on myself, working on my patience and my curiosity. resisting the urge to say, I told you so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You never want to do that. So if somebody were to ask me something, especially when the evidence starts rolling out, and it will, they're going to get really curious. When they come and they ask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play dumb, even if I'm a complete expert on that. So let's just say that they go after, I don't know, let's say McCabe, and he gets perp walked, or maybe if Fauci and Gates, they get perp walked. Well, we can tell you everything you want to know about these criminals, but I'm not going to. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'll say, I'll tell you what, I've heard that name a lot. I think he was second in command, the FBI under Comey. And I know that he oversaw people like Strzok and Page and Bruce Orr, I think. Let me dig into that for a couple of days. And if I find anything, I'll send you a link. And if you find anything, send me a link. And let's research this together separately.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be shoulder to shoulder with them, because when their light bulb goes on, they don't want to admit in front of another person they were completely wrong. Let them have that aha moment by themselves. It's just a decent thing to do. And it makes it easier for them to finally come to their moment like, holy crap, there's something here. And maybe, you know, Scott and Patty were right all this time. I just want them to have that moment by themselves. And then when we get back together, I'll say, tell me what you found. And instead of sharing what I already knew, I'm going to let them be the expert. The other thing I would do too is I would say, hey, let's get on a Zoom, or if we're together, let's hop on the internet on Twitter, because I found a whole bunch of friends who have like little expertise in different areas.
Yeah.
I know someone who like really knows a lot about Andrew McCabe. Let's ask him some questions and see what they know about McCabe and maybe what he did and who he's connected to. So that way I'm not the expert. We'll go find an expert. And so I might ask him something like, hey, I heard something about his wife tied to the Clintons or the Clinton Foundation. You got anything on that? And then they're going to talk about, you know, the $700,000 they contributed to her campaign run. And so as people start waking up, I would recommend that people go back to remember what it felt like when they started waking up. Because for me, it was painful.
And, you know, I think it's a good point, what you said there about letting them have that moment, that aha realization, because a lot of the time after that, for some people, it can be, you know, they're going to be kind of in shock, like
devastating.
What? And they're going to need time to kind of like recoup from that.
Weren't you? You were.
Oh, I was messed up for months.
He was.
I shock red pilled myself on 9/11, and I watched Loose Change, and it tied everything together to the Fed and Jekyll Island, and just how corrupt our leaders have been all this time. And it was
no coincidences.
But what's funny, I think I shared this with you guys. But here's the thing: is I was camping with two other couples that you know, the five of us were all woke. Well, he was supposed to join us, but it was raining. He stayed home. That's the night while I was away. That's the night that he woke up watching Loose Change, and then all night long. When he called that camper the next morning and told me, "Oh my gosh, you guys were right. I almost fell on the floor." And as soon as I got the phone, I said, "You got my friends." I said, "You guys are not going to believe this. Scott believes me now. You can't believe how refreshing that was, because we had been." Let me give you an example. Just this morning, no coinkydink. There is no thing. There's no such thing as coincidence.
No coincidences.
Right? I'm listening to last week's. Simon Parks he's a fellow in England who was actually a politician for a while, but he's also in touch with galactics. So he's very, very knowledgeable. So he knows of this world because of insiders, but he also has information from up there somewhere. Right. He does a question and answer thing like every 2 weeks. Somebody from Australia had the question, when is the truth going to come out? Do you think it might be before the election? I've lost family. You know, I've lost friends. When is this going to happen? And what he said, I found fascinating. He said, you know, the sad part about all this is there are actually couples, not only families breaking apart, but couples breaking apart because one will evolve and the other one doesn't want to. And pretty soon the evolved person, no judgment here, by the way, but the evolved person will finally look at that person who just doesn't want to wake up, and he'll say, we don't have anything in common anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they split up. Thank God.
Yeah.
Scott and I kind of found, you know, that path to kind of get back together again. Not that we've always gotten along, but you can imagine the friction when one does not want to hear the truth and you're just going crazy learning all this stuff. Right. Again, yeah. I know we're not alone. Mm-hmm. I know there's people relating to this.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I mean, we certainly do, because you know, it was quite strange, you know, with our wake up experience. You know, I mean, it took a minute for us to kind of like
get on board
hit that same tempo, you know, where we were like, whoa.
That we had an advantage because of the fact that both of us pretty much our entire lives have felt that something's not right in this world. You know, it's kind of one of those things we could never put our finger on exactly, but
we were always questioning.
Didn't feel right here.
Something was off.
One of the things that's important to know about the other person is how do they process things? Mm-hmm. Some people process things emotionally and some people process things logically, as I do.
Right.
So when we argue, she argues emotionally, I argue logically.
That's exactly us.
So
that's exactly how we do it.
So if you rewind the tape, instead of them, you know, talking about our presidents eat babies, if they had taken the time to understand how I process things, they could have just sent me a video clip of Building 7 coming down in free fall and said, dig into this because you understand physics.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would have watched that and I said, well, that's controlled demolition. And they said, well, you know, that thing was the third building that came down on 9/11 at 5:20 in the evening. And the BBC reported it came down at 5 o'clock. And I would have said, well, that's illogical.
Exactly.
Now you got me interested.
Now that sets off a chain reaction. You start connecting all those dots.
Exactly. But
and the stuff you find along the way.
You gotta cast the right fly for the fish.
Yeah.
And so you got to know who you're talking to and put a little thought and empathy into your approach of, hey, we've been watching this building come down and they said it was from an office fire on the 3rd floor. And I would have said, well, office fires don't bring down concrete and steel.
No, they don't.
And it was never even touched. That's the thing.
No.
You know?
And so I would have said, you people are crazy. And they're like, yeah, we are. That's why we wanted you to look at this because you're the smart one.
Yep.
And I would have been all in. I would have been looking at that going, well, that makes no sense. And
yeah, it's one of those, okay, so prove that we're crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Prove it.
So again, just have some empathy for how the other person takes things in, or maybe what it is they're curious about, and then be curious about what they're curious about.
Yeah. Right. And that's some really good advice, you know, because I know that we've had our issues where I'm like, Kerry, this is what's going on. You know, she's like, what are you talking about? You know, and she gets so frustrated and I'm like, and then I get frustrated because I'm like, why can't she see this? You know, but we've had our moments, but you know, we keep at it as a couple, you know, I mean, and that's a big, awesome point you brought up, Patty, that, you know, you do need to grow together. And it's very amazing to have somebody with you who's like, okay, you know, we're neck and neck, we're in this together.
Well, yeah. And somebody who's at least open-minded enough to listen to what you have to say, you know, that's huge. If somebody has just decided that they're going to close their mind and this is my reality and don't try to tell me any different.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, what do you do with that?
I want to talk about that because this is an area I actually have studied. So if I'm in a relationship with someone and they, quote, don't want to wake up or they don't want to know the truth, it's not their fault.
Right.
Our subconscious mind is about 1 million times more powerful than our conscious mind. And our subconscious mind exists for one task: to survive. That's all it is built to do. And that includes surviving us. And it will protect us in any way, shape, or form. So stay with me here. So when you're suggesting, so somebody looks into something as like Q or the Great Awakening, and as soon as they start seeing it might be real, their subconscious mind is going to shut it down as hard as it can, because it's like sending a raccoon in for the dog food you left out. And your subconscious mind sits there and it goes, no, 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 no. This is attacking our entire value and belief system. Everything our entire operating system is built upon, this is going to try to erode it. And it will absolutely tell your conscious mind, tell them to piss off.
Yeah.
And they're going to look at you and say, piss off. I don't want to talk about this. Deep down inside, they probably do. but that's not the information they're getting from their subconscious mind. So don't get angry at other people. This isn't their fault. And if you think about what I went through, rebooting my entire operating system just on 9/11 and our politicians, and then being complicit in killing Americans, that's one little piece in a jigsaw puzzle of the Great Awakening. Of a 500-piece puzzle, 9/11 is just one little piece. So now think about what they're going to go through. They got to connect 499 more puzzle pieces. We got to go soft and slow and understand that the elephant in the room isn't them consciously pushing back against you. It's them subconsciously not wanting that allow them to come into their mind, because for their mind, it's poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's kind of like, we've had experiences with people like that. And we've seen that actually take place where you're telling them something. You're like, hey, you know, this right here, you should look at it. It's real. They'll go look at it. But then you can see their subconscious mind trying to protect them. They will try to come up with something logically that they can explain it away with.
Other explanation.
So it still fits in their little belief window, because, I mean, it can be.
Well, you dropped the wrong word by accident, the T word. We got to stop telling and start asking. When I train professional salespeople and I teach them a Socratic collaborative method of selling, which involves the other person making decisions and involves their ideas in building a solution, the same thing applies here. So if I'm a room full of salespeople, I'll walk up to the guy in the front row and I go, put your hand up like we're going to high five. And they do that. And I'll walk up and I'll put my palm on their palm and I'll start pushing. And then they'll start pushing back. And I'll start pushing and they're pushing back. And I'll put my hand away. I go, why are you pushing back? I didn't ask you to do that. I just asked you to hold your hand up. They go, well, I don't know. It's the same thing when we tell somebody something, they will subconsciously push back. But if I ask enough questions and get them to say what I wanted to say, I've never seen anybody push back on their own idea. Not once.
True.
So this is why, instead of saying, hey, they're perp walking Fauci and Gates today, and I told them that, I'm like, hey, I'm hearing these rumors that little guy that used to come up and tell us to not wear masks and wear masks, I'm hearing rumors that he got in trouble for something. Would you be willing to look into this with me? This sounds really bad. If they go, yeah, I'll have a look. Now they're involved in coming to a decision or a solution. And when we discover together that he maybe got perp walked or the indictments are unsealed, I would be just as surprised as they are. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Maybe we should look into who he's connected with, or maybe a lot of times their relatives have these side deals going. I wonder who he's married to. And then we dig together.
Right.
Yeah. And see, that's really good advice because, you know, I mean, it is, you know, all this information and you want to tell people, you know, and every time you do it, you get the pushback.
Backfires.
Yeah. It blows up in your face. You're like, okay.
And I think we've all talked about this, but one of the things that I'm noticing, and this is a little bit in another direction, but the Q movement has been so incredibly powerful because my goodness, you guys, I'll give you a beautiful example. When we first met you two, it was last Saturday or the Saturday before, we were on the phone. I think it was almost 3 hours. Then we had to go meet our new Q friend.
Oh, right.
Sunday, you the four of us talked and shared. When we got off that Zoom meeting, I said to Scott, how long were we on there? 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
4 hours. And we could have kept talking.
Amazing.
Yeah. There's so much more stuff.
But this is what's beautiful. Like-minded people are beginning to meet each other like this. And it's so, I know, like with our new Q friends, Kathy and Jeff, they were on the Q for quite a while. They were on this movement. They had nobody around them that they could talk to. When they met us, whoa, we were best friends. Just instantly. And that's how this feels.
Side note to the two Chris's, not best friends, but really good friends.
I know. No, but Chris has been my friend for many, many years. He knows that. And you guys were friends since high school. So
yeah, and you know, regarding the Q thing, phenomena is what I call it. I was fortunate and I just stumbled across it early, November 2nd. So I was only like 5 days late to the party.
Yeah.
And what it did, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think I've seen it in other people. I was always the most apolitical person you would ever meet in your life. I was so apathetic. I could care less. Yep. Even though I knew they were all rigged, I knew that it was an illusion of choice. Both sides were rigged together to keep us arguing amongst ourselves, red versus blue, left versus right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just didn't care, you know, do I vote W or Gore? It's hamburger, cheeseburger. You know, two white puppets that are going to ruin our country.
Oh, so, both skull and bones.
But I'll tell you what Q did is they not only gave us hope, but they got us interested.
It got us involved again in politics, yes, and caring again about what happens in the political realm.
Yeah, very much so.
I had checked out of it too. I was checked out. I didn't care, didn't follow any of it. Yeah. And now it's like the complete opposite, you know. We're following everything every day, and it's all happening at such a fast pace. It's crazy.
Yeah.
What it also did was there are certain types of thinkers in society, and they're what are called leading edge thinkers, and then there's the middle of the bell curve, and then there's lagging edge. And the leading edge people are always driven by what's new and what's interesting. And so, you know, we're always looking for the next thing, whether it's technology or ideas or whatever that might be. And it just attracted us in like hives.
Right.
And so as soon as I started reading those first drops, and I had never been on a Chan board before, but I was on the Chan board and reading how people were interacting and talking and sharing ideas. By like the second day, I said to her, I go, I don't need you to read this, but I found something that for me is like mental chewing gum.
Yeah.
And because you know, my hobbies would always be crossword puzzles and Sudoku. I just like.
Oh, dude, I love crossword puzzles. I love those things.
Hey, I lost my puzzle and Guzzle buddy on, so we can get on Zooms and we can do the Wall Street Journals together, and have a beer while we do the puzzles together. Those are a lot of fun.
That's what I used to do when we were out camping. I'd have a book of puzzles, and I'd be like, "All right, so here we go."
So who helped you with a lot of those puzzles?
True. All right. Somebody, a little English major over here.
Somebody must have told Q, "Hey, we attract a lot of people that like to solve puzzles." And Q goes, "Oh, okay. Hold my beer. Watch this." Q drops like their first 50 drops. I'm like, "Oh, this must be the Sunday Wall Street Journal puzzle. This was a bit of an ass kicker."
Hey, can you, Scott? Can you tell that little idea, or it's kind of like a metaphor about the beehive and how when Q drops something, you know, you have all the Can you know what I'm talking about? Because I don't think we got to talk about that last time, and that was a really good comparison. Yeah, analogy. Thank you.
What Q called the autists, and I don't like that term per se, but an autistic person, depending on their degree of autism and their degree of intelligence, can sometimes be known as an idiot savant. And an idiot savant does one thing perfectly well at the exclusion of all other thinking. So think Rain Man when the toothpicks drop and he just glances down and goes 256.
Right, exactly.
Didn't you have to give it a second thought. But autists are really good when they get into something. They get like tunnel vision and they will just dig into that one thing. So when Q first appeared, they appeared on 4chan, which was a free speech board where no censorship. You can talk about anything. You can post anything. So Q dropped there just to see what would happen. Well, the autists started kind of swarming on these drops and responding and dropping ideas and trying to work together to decode what we thought, you know, Q was referencing here. And does this connect to that? And so Q figured out really early on, this is going to work. We've attracted the right people. We've got the right place to do this. So then 4chan moved over to something called 8chan, same thing. But then what happened was I began noticing that Q wasn't just referencing their own thoughts, but they would link at first to people on the 4chan and link to that and then respond to that and add to that, proving that that person's theory was correct or validated. But once it moved to 8chan and Twitter began getting more and more, drawing more and more people, Q started dropping some of their tweets and retweets. And so in my mind, I'm thinking there's some digging going on over here on this Twitter thing. And then when 8kun went down, 8chan went down for that 4 month. Remember the radio silence, no Q, no nothing?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of us who are used to digging on the Chan boards, I just went ahead and opened my Twitter account, not knowing a thing about it. My very first tweet was, I'm new here. Can anybody show me how this works? And so what's happened now, if you actually go look at the balance of Q drops, it's insane how many Twitters are being referenced by Q.
Yep.
Because Twitter had an advantage that the 8kun doesn't have. Here we can kind of get to know each other, either in real life or anonymously, but we can create hives.
Yep.
Now over on the where Q drops on the kun board, it's one massive hive. Okay. So you have bees of all different talent working together. You can have, the plain fags and the geography fags, the history fags, the law fags. I mean, we're all there and we're all trying to work together, but there's no way to communicate with each other. Now over here on Twitter, and I keep going there and here because I have a split screen. I got kun over here and Twitter over here, but in Twitter, the autists and the anons started getting together and communicating. And we started realizing we all have certain strengths and interests, and we started creating mini hives. And so, people call them threads or rooms where you can create a room and invite people in. So to finish up this analogy or metaphor, and I never know which is which, I'm too lazy to go look it up, but it's one of those two. The way real bees work, and to tell you how intelligent our universe is, the way real honeybees work is one will fly out and he'll go like a half a mile and he finds this patch of flowers that's just pollen rich. So he not only brings back as much pollen as he can carry, but while he's depositing it in the honeycomb, he starts dancing and he's vibrating and he's dancing in a certain direction at a certain frequency. He's telling all the other bees the exact direction and azimuth and distance of where that pollen is, using the sun's rays as an angle for them to know the exact angle of which to fly and how far to go to find those flowers. And that vibration and communications actually takes into account the movement of the sun between the time he found it, flew back and did his dance. And he's letting him know the angles are going to be now at this angle, but it's still that distance.
That is mind-blowing.
Isn't that amazing?
So mind-blowing.
And people say that there's no divine intelligence in this universe.
Right,
exactly.
There so is. It's
So finishing this thing up, we now and I'm just using Twitter as the example, we now know, and we've done this working together, the four of us have, we now can find a piece of pollen, which is a piece of information, or maybe we go back and we find a Q drop that's now relevant to today. And we bring that back to the hive and we go, look at this. This is interesting. I think this might connect to this. And all of a sudden, here comes the swarm.
There we go.
And everybody's going, wait a minute, that guy's connected to this guy. And somebody's going, wait a minute, I found a Q drop on that guy. And pretty soon we're building like a little map. And it happens in real time. And the map is rock solid information that we can then tweet out into the world. And that's why when Q said, you are the news, we are the news.
Yeah.
We're reporting on it because it's not one reporter, one journalist, it's millions of them. And we're all trying to poke a hole in the story. And when we can't, we go, that one holds water. That one's newsworthy. And out it goes.
Exactly.
You know what, Scott, I would love for you to share very quickly that the C-130 story, just to show you how beautifully these people work together.
This is how fast information now can be exchanged and verified in real time.
It's a great story.
So I was on a Zoom meeting with some of my friends on Twitter. Man, these are some smart people.
Very smart.
Really smart.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here and all of a sudden I heard this low flying aircraft that I hadn't heard since I was in the military. I'm thinking to myself, sounds like a cargo plane and it's going low and slow and it never flies over my part of Ohio. Never. And so I just real casually, I go, holy crap, I think a military cargo plane just flew over my house. One guy, I won't say his name, he's a plane fag. He goes, what part of Ohio are you in? He goes, give me your zip code. I gave it to him. 15 seconds later, he goes, dude, that was a C-130 heading from Akron to Cleveland. He goes, there's another at 2,900 feet. going 240 miles an hour. He goes, you got another one coming in 3 minutes. And sure enough, 3 minutes later, here came a second one.
I just love
that. Is crazy.
I love that.
I'm like, how did you do that? He goes, the technology's everywhere. He goes, it's an app.
Easy peasy.
Right. Crazy.
That's what I mean about this. He calls it a phenomenon. I call it a movement because it really is, to me, it's a movement.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing the things that are happening, when we all put our little heads together, and
definitely.
It's just amazing. It really is. And, he and I are a little different because I think you had mentioned this, Kerry. I don't get on Twitter. I never have. He set up an account for me. But
I can scroll through what's going on Twitter, but I'm not on there, retweeting.
Yeah, she's
that.
like,
That's
Joel,
all him.
You deal with that.
Yeah.
So Scott is the Twitter and Q person, and I have a lot of different sites that I've been following, really smart people that interview smart brains and all. So I will gather that information in my office, and then again, what we talked about last week, told you the situation room,
right?
And then I'll come in here and say, oh my gosh, did you hear about this, or did you see this? And then we just, that's how we share. It's amazing.
Oh, I gotta say, Patty, too, I love your hat.
Awesome. I do too.
It's so awesome.
The best ones I've ever seen. Really, it really is.
I hate to break it to the three of you, but that is actually my hat.
Scott, I love your hat.
Well, he thinks I look cute in it, so he told me to wear it.
You do.
Looks very nice.
Look lovely.
Well, I think she does look cute in it. Plus I never have a bad hair day. So. One other random thought as she was talking about the power of the hive. Two thoughts, actually. Have you guys noticed that the people with the really good YouTube channels about the Great Awakening and world politics and everything that's happening, have you noticed now they're all getting their information from the leaders on Twitter?
Yeah.
They're the ones referencing those accounts. That's where they're going for their news.
Yeah.
So they're no longer at the forefront. They're now towards the middle of the bell curve and reporting on it. Which is
it's
fine.
Very interesting because we pull a lot of news from Twitter too. We're like, let's put it on the channel because it's good. It is good, and if it's good, use it.
And the other thing that when people start approaching you saying, hey, you were talking about that or dropping that on social media 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the best way to position yourself in a way that's modest and true is to say, well, it's not me. I've fallen in with, 100,000 other people and they're doing most of the heavy lifting. I'm just learning from them and learning with them. And so when we put something out, you can trust that it's been verified over and over again as true, and we can actually cite our sources.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That way it's not like you're the expert, you're the smart person. I just say, you know what? I just fell in with the right group and several groups, in fact, and we dig all the time. It's not just me.
Yeah, it's a collective, I mean, it's amazing, like the information that we dig out. I mean, you have one person bringing this in, it goes back to the whole hive theory. Everybody's like, okay, let's dig on this. Boom, everybody goes out there.
By the way, the hive would be a metaphor.
Okay.
What's the difference? I like learning new things.
Yeah, can you explain the difference, Kerry?
A metaphor is more of a comparison, whereas an analogy is more of an example. Does that make sense?
I've officially been educated.
Thank you for that, darling.
English major here.
I love it. And you know what's funny is I learn best, you guys, when somebody's trying to share an idea, I learn best if they give me an analogy, for example. And when they do and kind of dumb it down for me, it just helps me to understand what they're trying to teach me. Do you know what I'm saying? It really does help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It totally does. You guys are breaking up a little bit here.
A little bit of a lag here.
Yeah.
Looks good on our end.
Uh-oh.
Well, welcome to live recording.
Yeah, no
kidding.
Oh,
gotta love it.
I think it's working okay now. Yeah?
I mean, it's okay.
Maybe a little bit.
Let me know when you see my thumbs up.
Yeah, all I saw was this.
It's not stopping.
Let me know when you see the number 3.
Okay,
all right, we got it.
Yep.
We got the 3.
That's a little bit of a lag.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lag.
I could stop the video on my end and people could just listen from here on. They know what we look like.
Oh, we want to see you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but if I go straight audio, I can keep rolling my eyes.
Oh my word.
Oh dear.
So was there anything on your little list of
I'm just trying to think of if there was
wanted
anything
to talk about.
I think we pretty much talked about most of it. Okay, so all right, here's something. All right, so Scott always says that we're watching a movie. I think he's right, but then you guys, there's this other part that's telling me, you know what though? Like when I was watching the Bill Barr hearing yesterday, right?
Yeah, oh man.
And I mean, these Democrats are just trying to shred him verbally.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? What do they kept saying? What's the thing they kept saying?
Reclaiming my time.
Yeah, I'm reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Scott says, okay, now they're reading, it's a script, but then there's a part of me that says, look how desperate they are to take him down. I mean, they are like intently just going at him. And I think now in my mind that there was part of this was these people given a false sense of security so that they think that there still might be a way out.
A chance for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And to me, you know, when I hear the desperation in their voices and just how angry they are, I feel like they truly believe and they're desperately trying to find a way out, but they know they're losing. And that's the desperation. What do you guys think about that?
I agree with that.
I think you're right. And I thought it was hilarious. Barr just sitting there, you know, he's just,
Yep.
He's amazing.
the honey badger. He's like, okay, yeah, what are you going to say that's going to prove anything? Because you're all screwed at this point.
I think yesterday served as a really good example, and I'll speak for me. But when you're watching something or learning something or seeing something, you can get emotionally hijacked.
Yeah.
I was sitting there watching that Sheila Jackson, that pedo from Houston.
Yeah, Sheila Jackson.
And I'm sitting there watching this disgusting human being. Has nothing to do with gender, race, nothing. I just know she's a pedo and she's just an angry, horrible person. And I sat there and watched her beat up an American hero. And I really found myself getting emotionally hijacked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so understand that when you're red pilling or talking with somebody else, as soon as you see them start getting emotionally hijacked, you got to shift course immediately. Okay. So as the day went on and I started playing that whole thing over and over in my head and I calmed down, I started picking out the brilliance of what I saw. And then we talked about this last night. How brilliant was it when I realized every Democrat was reading from a script?
Yep.
I'm like, what do you do when you're in a movie? You read from a script.
Yeah.
Why were they not letting him speak? And when they did, what did he say? What did he pull out? And as I calmed down and my logic took back over, we came to that one aha moment when Jim Jordan said to him, Mr. Barr, please tell me that you've got Mr. Durham investigating the unmasking of General Flynn. Do you have Durham investigating that? William Barr goes, no. No, Mr. Congressman, I don't. And Jordan goes, you're kidding me. Durham's not looking into the illegal unmasking of General Flynn. Durham goes, no, Congressman, he's not. Then Jordan goes, do you have anybody else investigating this? He goes, yes. He goes, are you at liberty to tell us who? He goes, that would be a gentleman named John Bash, attorney out of Texas.
Just so casually drops it.
Yep. And so I'm like, oh, we're introducing a new actor into our play, into our movie. So then later on, we're all digging around on John Bash, and guess what we found? Barr appointed him 2 years ago. Fox News ran an article on it that was on the internet. So Jim Jordan knew 2 years ago, yet he played dumb and asked the question to get William Barr in front of the entire world to introduce John Bash into our movie.
Yep.
So then later on, we're all Googling around, and sure enough, somebody finds a picture of Justice Kavanaugh at his deposition or whatever, when they were running through the gauntlet, there was some good looking woman sitting over his shoulder, and she kept doing strange things. Like she would do the peppy pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was doing that.
Yeah, she did the okay thing.
The okay thing, right?
Yep.
Guess who that turned out to be? John Bash's wife.
Ding, ding,
Behind
ding,
Brett
ding.
Kavanaugh the entire time, making her little cameo in the movie, knowing we would find it sooner or later, and then boom, the whole thing ties together.
Yep,
So
you have more than you know.
Yesterday, when I'm sitting there with my blood pressure going through the roof.
Right? Yeah, I had to walk out of the room several times.
And then I look back on it and I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Barr was able to introduce a key investigator into this whole scum, and the Democrats imploded in front of the world.
Yes, they
So I'm saying to myself, even if I was
Once
a
again.
moderate, or,
Once again.
I could watch the entire left-leaning people watch this and go, I ain't voting that back in office. That is dysfunctional right there.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can see that, right?
Well, and,
Yep.
and then somebody, I think earlier on, I want to say it was a Democratic woman, I do not remember. Didn't she ask, or you didn't watch the whole thing, but she asked Barr, is the Durham report going to come out before
she said,
or after? What was that?
she said, Mr. Barr, can you guarantee that that Durham thing isn't going to come out before this election and, and sway it? And he goes, no.
No.
Nice.
You go, guy. Come on, man. Oh, and you also talked about when they were not going to give him a bathroom break. He wanted to and they tell them what you learned about that, Scott.
That's amazing.
Oh, this was cool, man. When he shared this,
Pat myself on the back for that dig.
That's so cool.
And I kept saying, and I can't even remember what I dropped on it. I'd have to go look. But I remember, why are they making such a big stink about a break? I mean, I know people need bathroom breaks and food breaks, but here's Nadler not wanting to give Barr a break. And I said, man, there was a Q drop on the break. So hang on a second. So last night we all kind of did some digging together on that.
There's that. I love that.
So wait, the Q drop came at the time of that 5-minute break? Is that what you said, or what?
No, it was actually, what time was it? I think it was.
So I dropped this crumb at 11:30 last night. I said, did Barr give Durham, Bush, or Bash, Huber, etc. a green light signal during the break in today's beep show? And then it was right after Q dropped last night in all caps, nothing can stop what's coming, nothing, where we go all 3 exclamation points. I said, that's a pretty clear signal. We're going to offense. So I went back into qmap.pub, and in the search box, I put quote mark the break, quote mark, so it would find that exact phrase, not one word or the other, but both words together. Q drop 314, all the way back on 9 December of 17. Be the autist we know you are. It's about the break.
Oh,
Godspeed.
That's insane.
I know.
Now, is it accurate? No, I don't know. Is it interesting? Hell yeah.
Very much so. Yes.
Why was Barr pushing so hard for a break, and why was Nadler pushing back so hard?
Right.
Yeah, I want to screen share that real quick.
A 5-minute break, right?
Right. And Jordan jumped down Nadler's throat for that.
Yeah.
But this is where, good digging is really a combination of both intuition and logic.
Yeah.
So if intuitively something doesn't feel right, you just think about it, and you try to think about it from all angles.
So you have, this is it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And man, that's amazing. It's about the break. Godspeed, Patriots.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how that was from December of 2017. And, that's possibly tying into.
And then there was another one. I didn't have time to find it last night, but do you remember the pool table? I think it had the CIA logo or something, and the 2 Qs were crossed, and the balls were racked up like they were ready for a break.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, it was
at Camp David, that pool table.
Yeah, at Camp David.
They were clearly trying to communicate something, but I didn't have time to dig on it last night. But that might be my homework assignment when we get off this call, is I'm going to find out what that one was about.
Because I remember him showing that to me, that they were trying to signal because, you know, they had the cue sticks on the table just the way that they did. And it's like, oh, this means something. Everything they put out means something, like the Mercer pen, you know, just follow the pen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. So I do have a question here from one of our followers. They wanted to know how you two met and if you have any funny stories about that.
I'll give the short version.
Yeah.
I was a salesman, not really a salesman, for a mom and pop printing company. And we were growing the business enough to where we actually needed to look like a business. So I recommended to the husband and wife that owned it that we should get somebody professional answering our phones, because I was going out getting corporate accounts. And so the wife says, well, I used to work with this woman at Penny's. She's got a great voice and she might be perfect for this. So they were going to bring her in on a Friday afternoon to interview her, and I was supposed to actually interview her. Well, I was straight commission. So I had already earned my money, so I went golfing. And so they brought her in and interviewed her and hired her. So when I went back that evening to have a chat, and I go, how'd it go? They go, we hired her. I'm like, oh, great. When's she starting? They said, well, 2 weeks. She's got to work out her notice. I'm like, awesome. So I said, well, we're having our little company picnic tomorrow. Why don't you invite her? And then she can get to know the employees and she'll feel more at home when she starts. They said, great idea. So the next day they said, hey, Scott, we're going to come pick you up. We're going to drive to Penny's in the shopping mall, and you can meet Patty. And why don't you invite her to the picnic later that evening, that afternoon? So we go walking through the mall, and I was walking across this atrium in Penny's on the second floor. They had this giant opening, and there was some woman standing there with this clipboard, and she was trying to get people to sign up for a Penny's credit card.
I hated that part of the job.
But as we were walking up, I real quietly said to Dave, I go, tell me that's her. He goes, yep, that's her. And I'm like, oh, hello. So I walked up, I gave her my best smile, put my hand out, introduced myself. And I said, we're having a little company barbecue this afternoon, and we would love for you to join us. And
well, the first thing you said to me, and I will never forget this, I very sarcastically, as you might know by now, I wanted to meet the person that I didn't hire. You guys, it's so weird about this, because when Mary told me, you know, about Scott, she might have even given me your business card, and she said, you know, he's a drummer. Even before I met him, there was a part of me that was thinking, oh my goodness, whoever this person is, I hope he's single. Now, why would I think that?
Right.
So the second that he walked up and opened his mouth and said that funny thing to me, I swear to God, it was love at first sight. I'm not kidding you. I didn't have much money at the time. I was living on my own, working at Penny's. By the way, the voice that she was talking about, I used to be the one that you'd hear over the loudspeaker calling managers. I was the PBX operator. Oh, yes. It's so smooth,
Very
right?
nice.
That's my sexy voice, stupid.
so she shows up for this barbecue all dolled up, and you know, in a brand new, like stone washed jeans and a bright white sweater, and makeup's just perfect. And I'm like, woof. And then she did something which she still does today, which I mistook as a buying signal.
I did not mean it.
She has a bad habit when she bends down, either put something down or pick it up. She doesn't bend her knees. So she's stiff-legged and bending over like one of those dunking water birds. So she was playing her 12-string guitar, and then she went to put it away, and right in front of me, she facing away, bends right over. Her butt's right there.
Like, Mom!
And I'm like, you know, being a sales expert, I'm like, that's a buying signal.
I had no idea, you guys. I swear to God. Do we have X-ray? I hope we don't have to X-ray.
So long story short, she starts on a Monday. And on that Friday, we all show up for work at 8 o'clock, and all of our belongings are piled up on our desks. They couldn't make payroll. So they fired me and her and a guy named Denny. So we load everything into our cars, and we all head back to my house. And so here we are now. It's 8:30 in the morning. So I don't have a job. So I cracked my first beer of the day, and we're sitting there talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do. And my light bulb went on. I had sold a job to my mom's company, a staffing company, and they needed full color brochures. And because we were a one color press, we couldn't do full color printing. So I started calling around all the print shops in Ohio, and I found a company that was willing to print these things wholesale because we were technically going to broker the job.
Mm-hmm.
So they had it quoted from the ad agency who designed them for, and it was like $5,500 for 5,000 of these little trifolds. So they're about $1 a piece. Well, I found a price where I could get them for half that. So my cost was like $2,800, and I was going to sell it for $5,500. There's $2,700 profit just from swapping invoices. So I go, guys, we're back in business. Howard called my last name. I don't want to give anything away here, but I go, I got a name. And Patty goes, well, my dad's an attorney and he can help you incorporate or start the company. So here it is, like 10:30 the same day. I'm on the phone with her dad, nicest guy in the world. And he goes, what do you want to do? I go, I want to broker printing. He goes, you got a name? I go, yep, it's blank. He goes, you got $125? I go, yes, sir, I do. What's that for? He goes, it's my cost. We'll just file the name with the state of Ohio. He goes, you can start selling today. You're in business. And that's how we started the company. And she's been working with me ever since for 30 years.
And
that's amazing.
Sounds pretty divine to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you guys, but
no doubt about it. And here's the thing, Scott is very, very honest. He really is. The reason that this all happened was because he took his idea of hiring, like brokering the printing, and they could make a lot of money. And the owner said, if we don't print it,
you don't sell it. And I'm like, dude, do you don't have any idea how many envelopes and letterhead we got to run to clear $2,700 in profit? I handed him the order, and he didn't want to touch it.
It was his ego.
So we got into a big argument about it. I'm like, I'm bringing money into the company. We need money.
Yeah.
And so once he fired me over that, I'm like, well, I'll go take the $2,700 if you don't want it.
So he tried.
The one thing I'll say is we've been together inseparable for 30 years. And I'm going to tell you what Q really did for our marriage, at least for my side of the story, is that we work from home offices. So here's my office, on their side of the wall is her office. So we've worked together. We've lived together. I don't, travel ever without her. I don't leave the house much without her. And when I do, she knows exactly where I am and who I'm with and when I'll be home. So we're inseparable. Well, I'll tell you, about 25 years of that, you run out of stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I left and came back at the end of the office and she goes, how was your day? She knows how my day was. She's just like, listening to one of my conversations. And I will tell you, it can put a strain on a marriage when you just don't have anything new to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we got lots to talk about.
There is so much to talk about. Yeah.
Right. And what I shared with you guys when we were just the four of us was how, and I talk about this quite often, our world has expanded in such a beautiful way.
Oh yeah.
Because of this, meeting people like you and getting to know you and other cute people from all around the world. It's amazing. Amazing.
It really is.
Really.
It's also taken away my ability to have small talk about ordinary crap.
Isn't that true?
I don't care about sports anymore. I don't even want to talk about sports.
Right. I can't stand it.
You want to talk about something real, something that's not a distraction, because now that the truth is being exposed, that's real, and everything else is just
doesn't matter anymore.
If we do another show, can I interview you two?
Yeah,
sure.
And how are we doing on time? What do you have a little time?
We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we're running about close to an hour here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Coming up on an hour.
I know, it goes so fast.
I was just going to say it went fast. Oh, Kerry, before we end here, you said in your last, I think it was video, you said, I don't know where the time's gone. I don't know what day it is. Well, just to share a little bit of something that Scott and I learned, I think back in 1990, we were watching a video by this guy named Greg Braden, and other listeners might have heard of this fellow. But he was talking clear back then about returning to 0 point. Remember that, hon? Returning to 0 point. And he said that the closer that we get to the 0 point, the faster time is going to go. Time is speeding up.
Yeah.
And I think
it really feels that way.
Doesn't it feel that way? And I
definitely
think right, because we are kind of moving through the veils, so to speak. we're sort of, in my opinion, I think a lot of us have one foot in the 3D world and we're trying to survive this.
Yeah.
Then our other foot is kind of a little bit higher. Do you know what I'm saying? Kind of like almost fifth dimensional. Yeah. And I think that's why we're kind of losing track, because we're not, Jesus said once, didn't he say, be in the world, but not of it? And I think that's where we are now.
Yeah.
We're paying attention to it. We're learning. We know what's going on, but we're not of it anymore. And I think that's just a neat kind of way to look at it.
You know, that coupled with, you know, our planet moving into a new area in space, you know, I mean, it's
exactly.
It's kind of mind blowing, all this
We
stuff.
are moving into the age of Aquarius, which they thought happened in the 70s. Remember?
I thought, what was the name of the group that sang that song? The Fifth Dimension.
Over
Fifth
this.
Dimension.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Fifth Dimension.
Yep.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
Did you guys notice, by the by, that the news, some of the news is actually starting to talk about spaceships? Doctor the other day.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah, that's not necessarily good. That could be their last distraction.
I think
that's kind of the way we felt
like
too.
A distraction tactic.
You know, but it is, you know, they retracted that. The New York Times put that out, and then they almost retracted it like the next day or something.
Did they really?
Yeah,
they
it was.
It? Oh.
Well, they altered the story.
So so yesterday, you guys, when I'm doing the dishes, I listen to Rush Limbaugh, just parts of it.
I love
it. And in his office, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe what he just said." I think he was talking about that doctor that was standing on the SCOTUS steps, and she was talking about a cure, and she said that we've been ruled by aliens and reptilians. I said, "What the I couldn't have just heard that." And then a reporter asked Trump last night.
Thank you. Yes, I was about to bring this up.
Did you hear that? And he didn't even flinch.
He didn't budge. He just went. No. He just kind of did one of these. He was like, "No." I was like,
"That's huge."
You know, at the very least, you would have expected him to be like, "What are you talking about?"
Right?
You know, but he didn't.
Hey, this might be a good place to close, but this is getting interesting. Tommy G just dropped a little thing, and he goes, "Nadler is attacking Zuckerberg again. This is so odd to see everyone in Congress join together to jump these 4 lizards. This is the first time I've been proud of our government in years. How shocking is this?" So they're all pouncing on the people who are, you know, manipulating all of social media right now.
Yeah, and Facebook shut down our account a while back, and then they reinstated it, but we're pretty sure we're shadow banned there still.
Okay, so something jumped out at me just now. The lizards.
What
did we just say?
Exactly.
Things that make you go, huh?
Right. Very, very strange.
So many things.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and thank you for letting us totally dominate the conversation.
Yeah, we love it. Will you guys see us out?
Be happy to. Okay, are you ready?
All right.
Where we go on,
we go on.
God bless you.
Good night, Patriots.